pay $1,500 for free. So, you know, obviously great success with that, and really that's the type of success that I try to help people replicate. Obviously, the level of success is going to vary depending on many different factors, but my ultimate goal with every family I work with is to help the student graduate debt free. So, enough about me. Let's talk about the types of scholarships. I break things down into three categories. The first being need-based scholarships based on the student's family's income and assets. Most colleges in the country determine that via the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. There are some other colleges that use something called the CSS profile, and then there's a few other colleges that might use a different form. But ultimately, need-based scholarships come down to a calculation of the student's family's income and assets. And what surprises a lot of people is that they're living paycheck to paycheck, and FAFSA comes back saying, "You guys are wealthy. You guys can pay all of your income for your student to go to college." Family I worked with very early on in my career who had a combined household income of a little under $100,000. FAFSA came back saying, "You guys can easily pay $25,000 a year for your student," and I know that would not have been possible for them. So, if you're counting on need-based scholarships, just go in eyes wide open. There are tools out there that can help you figure out exactly what you will qualify for based on your numbers today. And Warren, I don't know exactly what class we're talking to here, but class of 2027, you're actually, it's too late to really do much with your income and assets because you've already filed the taxes that they're going to be looking at least for the first year. Before we move on to the next category, I did want to briefly mention student loans. This is also very surprising for many people. There have been some big changes to the world of student loans. The amount that students can get in their own name has been capped at a pretty low amount. It's $5,500 the first year. And as parents are finding out, federal parent loans have also been capped. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. I think it's like 60 to 65,000 per student lifetime. So parents are now having to look out in what's known as the private student loan market, and they are finding that, first of all, even people with good credit are sometimes denied because they have other types of dings, but they're also getting really high interest rates. You can see some screenshots here, like 14%, 16%. So the student loan market has changed drastically in the last year or two, and it's not as automatic as people think. Just to reiterate what I said a minute ago, that first year of college, students can only take $5,500 in their own name. You, mom and dad, any other responsible party are going to be on the hook for the rest. So just be aware of that and go into this whole process eyes wide open here. All right, so the second category of scholarships are merit-based scholarships, and these are based on the student's proven abilities. These come from the colleges themselves, and they are based on the student's resume. Merit scholarships for most students are going to come in the form of academic scholarships, but I also lump things like athletic scholarships and artistic scholarships into the merit-based category. For those of us who are not gifted athletes or gifted artists, we'll just kind of look at this from the standard merit perspective based on academics. Basically, the way to earn these is to have as high a GPA as you can get and get as high a test scores as possible. Now, that's not, let me rephrase that. Some colleges will award merit maybe based on other factors, but as a general rule, those are the two things that you want to be focused on if you're chasing merit aid at whatever colleges you're looking at. Just to kind of reiterate that, one of the students I worked with over the last year, they actually scored a full tuition scholarship based solely on their GPA and test scores. So I'm sure Warren has emphasized this with you, but those two things are very critical, not just for admissions, but to help pay for college as well. So definitely, if you have not finished your SATs or ACTs, where the scores you want to get, try to hit those numbers as soon as possible because college admissions is a long and winding road, as Warren has, I'm sure, told you. And the more you can get done earlier, the more time you'll have for applying for scholarships if you need them. That brings us to the third category of scholarships, private scholarships, also known as outside scholarships. And I say here that it's based on the amount of time and effort a student puts in. Now, of course, there are other factors, but that is one of the biggest factors. Students and families often will get excited in the beginning, apply for a handful of scholarships, and even if they might win those, the lag time until they find out is very long. And so they get disappointed, they get distracted, and then they stop. And so it's the students who really get beyond that initial excitement phase and then the letdown phase and are able to push through and continue long-term applying for scholarships using proven strategies, proven methods, proven tactics, and so forth. So unlike merit scholarships that come from the colleges, these are coming from businesses and philanthropic organizations. For us, this was 2/3 of what covered my son's college, so incredibly important for us. And I'll share another story in a minute. Some of these scholarships will actually just cut a check or direct deposit to the student's account. So it's funds can be used any way the student needs. And maybe the best of all, they can be used at any college in the country, including if the student transfers. And Warren, you might have the latest statistics, but I've heard anywhere from like a quarter to a third of students transfer colleges during their college career. So one of the dangers of relying solely on merit aid is because it comes from college A. If you go to college B, you lose that scholarship. Whereas outside scholarships, private scholarships will follow you, or follow the student, I should say. So it gives you some more flexibility. So, like I said, very important for my family. This is Talon and his mom, Audrey, a student I worked with. I think it's been 2 years ago now. She describes him as a very average student, and I think that's pretty fair to say. He was not, was not looking at like a Harvard or an Ivy League school, but incredibly hard worker and had a good story to tell in terms of what I call the student's personal narrative. Long story short, he earned well over $110,000 in scholarships, and I say so far because he continues to apply and earn scholarships. They're a very money-wise family, so he's finishing up his second year at community college now. He was in a 2+2 program, so automatic admissions to or entry into the 4-year college starting in the fall. And he's got everything paid for thanks to outside scholarships. In fact, he had so many scholarships coming in that first year that the community college cut him a check of $24,000 refund. So that's an extreme story. Obviously, I love to highlight that, but if you can even get things paid for, much less a refund check, that's fantastic. Ultimately, though, and from my perspective, as somebody looking at the financial piece of college, it doesn't matter which of these three sources you're tapping into. If you can tap into all three, fantastic. If you can tap into just two, fine. If it's only one, that's great. But you want to get as close to a full ride as you can, hopefully graduate debt free, and also keep the family savings intact. So you don't want to be draining your 401k or putting a second mortgage on your home to pay for college. So combine these in any way possible. And there are other things to consider in terms of what's known as scholarship stacking and scholarship displacement, which I do have a free blog article on my website you could reference if you're not sure what that means. So with that, let's talk about my scholarship summer camp. I'm sure Warren talks a lot about merit aid and probably some outside scholarships as well. I do focus most of my efforts on outside scholarships because that's where I feel I can make the most difference with the folks I work with. And the scholarship summer camp is a great way to kind of get introduced to that process. It's a 6-week program, combines recorded on-demand sessions with one weekly live session where we kind of recap that week's theme and lessons. Um, like I said, bite-sized lessons. My videos are anywhere from 5 minutes to about 15 minutes. I realize it's the summer. I don't want the student to be overburdened, but I do want them to get the necessary information. So I try to keep things short and actionable, and then have that nice wrap-up session at the end of the week where we can have Q&A and just make sure everybody's on the same page. Like I said, 6 weeks, those first 3 weeks are setting the foundation. And then weeks 4, 5, and 6, we actually, as a group, apply to real scholarships. So week 1, we focus on a scholarship where the essay prompt is, why do you deserve to win this scholarship? You will find that exact prompt in numerous scholarships. But even when you find a different prompt, that's still almost always what they're asking you. So learning how to answer that prompt is a great way to prepare for lots of scholarships in the future. Week 5, we will apply for a scholarship where they're not asking about the student, it's about a topic. And there are enough scholarships out there that are topically based that I want to teach students how to tackle those. Generally, if they're topically based, you're going to want it to align with something like your future college major or your interest. Then in week 6 is the big capstone project, and we apply for a scholarship that has a $35,000 top prize, and they award over $1.5 million worth of prizes across the board. So every year, more than half the students I work with who apply for this capstone project earn monetary prizes. It's my favorite scholarship. It's the VFW's Voice of Democracy Scholarship, and even if you're not working with me, highly recommend it. All the scholarships are open to students in grades 9 through 12, and as long as the student has a 3.0 or higher GPA, they're eligible for all of them. So the scholarship summer camp is for current 8th graders rising into 9th grade, all the way to current juniors who will be seniors in the fall. There is the outline. So that first week, the tools for scholarship success. Warren, you're stealing my thunder a little bit by talking about resumes tonight, because that's one of the lessons in there, because a resume is an important piece of your scholarship package. That week 2, we talk about the student's personal narrative. That really is the key to scholarship success. The more well-defined and well-explained the student's personal narrative is, almost invariably, those are the students who have the most scholarship success. Week 3, we get a little more tactical in terms of finding the right scholarships. So, where to look, how to look, and then how to prioritize scholarships based on certain factors. And then weeks 4, 5, and 6, we get into the actual applying for scholarships. So like I said, why do you deserve to win this scholarship, the topical scholarships, and then that big capstone project in week 6. Normally the summer camp's $97, but for those of you here tonight in Warren's program, you can use coupon code FutureFinders to save $20, so just $77. And again, would love to have you in the camp. Happy to answer any questions, but I do also know that time is of the essence because Warren has some things to share. So with that, you can scan that QR code to get there right now, but Warren will have the URL to send out later as well. So with that, thank you so much, everybody, and thank you, Warren, for letting me sit in tonight.
I'm not going to let you get away without a couple of questions because that was a
Sure,
great presentation. You got me thinking about a couple of things that I wanted to stress.
sure.
When you think about private scholarships, is it possible to win any private scholarships that you don't apply for?
No, no. Even those no essay scholarships still require that you put your name in the hat, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Well, and that's something I'm sure you stress a lot too, is you're not going to win any of the scholarships that you don't try for. And,
Yep.
if you're a student that's trying to calibrate your effort over your senior year, you really have to have some honest discussions with your parents about how much this matters to your family. And that's, I repeat it a lot, but I wanted to make sure that the people on the call heard it from others. And then I have one final question, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. I'll go first so you have time to think. Thinking about private scholarships again, I know a lot of people think, well, you have to be this or that, you have to be this demographic or that demographic, or the scholarships are only for this kind of kid. Do you have a favorite scholarship that debunks that? Because my favorite scholarship that I like to point out when people say, oh, I'm not that kind of kid, I'm not going to win a scholarship. There is a scholarship for who can write the best response to how they will survive a zombie apocalypse.
Yep.
That is out there that I love. They also poetically do the deadline on Halloween every year. So it's kind of perfect. And I was wondering if you had anything like that that kind of illustrates that point for us.
Yeah, well, that is a fun scholarship, and I always feature that one around Halloween for sure. Ironically, my favorite scholarship is also always has a Halloween deadline, and it's the one we're doing in the summer camp. It's the VFW's Voice of Democracy. I love that one because it's open to all high school students, no minimum GPA requirement. Students can win. They actually changed this rule recently. Students could win all 4 years. So theoretically, a student could win 140 grand over the course of their 4-year career. That's never happened, but it's possible. But what I really love about it most is that students they enter through their local VFW post, and there are hundreds or maybe even thousands of VFW posts around the country. It's not set in stone that post has to award a monetary prize to their top 1, 2, or 3 students, but I've never seen them not do that. So it's like everybody always says, apply for local scholarships. And yes, definitely apply for local scholarships, but not at the exclusion of national. But the VFW Voice of Democracy is like applying for a local and a state and a national scholarship all with one application. If you do well at the post level, you move on to the state, and then you move on to the national. So that's my favorite scholarship. One other I'll throw out there, especially for rising seniors, is the Burger King scholarship. I don't know the numbers this year because they cap the number of applicants they accept, and in previous years it was 50,000. This year they reduced it to 30. So I don't know if that affected the number of scholarships they award, but in the past they were awarding roughly 4,000 scholarships a year. So that works out to a 4 in 15 chance. What is that? 15%, something like that. Those numbers will probably be a little different now because they cut the number of applicants by 20,000. But I have students win that basically every year I've been doing this, including my own son. So that's another good one to put on your radar.
Sure. And so I have one question in the chat that seems really relevant from one of my clients. Does immigration status for these private scholarships factor into every one of them, or is it kind of a case by case thing?
It is more of a case by case situation. There are enough out there that don't look at citizenship or residency that it doesn't exclude you. But I will say you definitely will have fewer choices available to you.
Right. And Dave, it's Dave, the scholarship coach on Facebook, correct?
Correct. Yes. Yep. And I'm on a few other platforms, but that's where I'm spend most of my time.
Yeah. So if you guys have any other questions, I would definitely, Dave is a great follow on Facebook. You also definitely want to get on his mailing list because is it pretty much a daily scholarship that you send out?
Yeah, there's something new every day, Monday through Friday. I feature a different scholarship. Every once in a while, I'll throw a little editorial or kind of tip in there instead. Saturdays, I feature what I call weekender scholarships, which are easy entry, no essay, but legit scholarships that do award prizes. And then Sunday, I feature interviews with college admissions people, SAT prep people, just kind of anything of interest to college-bound students and families.
Awesome. So I would definitely encourage you all to think about scholarships as a part-time job. Dave's your boss. He's in charge on Facebook and through the newsletter so that he can get you what you need to be successful at your job. But it's definitely worth the effort. And the more it's like life, the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out. So we're going to do a little transition here. I'm going to reclaim host from Dave. I'm going to let him go get dinner with his wonderful family. And then those of you that want to stay around for the presentation that I've got around resumes, feel free to do so. If you need to dip and go to have dinner yourself, that is fine. I'm going to be sending a recording out out of this whole thing to everybody. So my feelings will only be a little bit hurt if you listen to Dave, but then leave for the rest of the call. That's absolutely fine. Dave, thank you so much. This was wonderful. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Warren. Thanks, everybody.
All right. All right, so I'm gonna give like just a minute of transition time here while I pull everything up. Great questions that we got there. I would encourage you to interact with Dave a lot. He's very quick on Facebook. He very friendly, very helpful. You don't have to be purchasing a service from him to get that help from him. You could tell he's a good guy. He just wants to help out with this as much as possible. So we're going to transition into the resume part of this. Now, I am not going to present a whole slide deck. I am not going to present a whole bunch of information at you because you probably don't want to hear me talk too much anymore. I'm going to be doing a lot of question answering and private help if that's what you need. But here's what I want to set everybody up with. Everybody on this call has the opportunity to get a free account with Canva. If you have not already done so, please get on Canva, start learning how to do this. Canva is a real game changer, and it is something that is definitely a college level skill. So I'm sure a lot of you are already better at this than I am, but if your skills aren't there yet, this is one that you can just start with, practice, get better at, and you'll take it with you the rest of your life. So the first thing I did want to quickly touch on are templates. Canva has a great section of templates that are here. You can see front and center resume templates are available. And I want to just give a few notes on this. There is a real temptation to get the coolest looking template, the one that is the most eye-catching, it's got pictures and graphics, like Alicia Ortiz's one over here. That looks very modern and slick. But generally, the best resume template is the one where you can get the most information on it, because it might not seem that way now while you're in high school, but this is going to be a document that you're going to have to selectively add to through the rest of your high school and college career. The one thing we didn't mention, scholarships are available all through undergrad, all through your master's degree, all through your PhD. You don't stop applying for scholarships when you're in high school. So if you've got a resume that you've been building since 10th grade and it's got all of your information on it and really shows your story and your impact, it's going to benefit you throughout the years. So when you're picking out your resume, if you're just starting from scratch tonight, pick one like this, where you can see the density available there, where you can just get a lot of content onto that page in a way that looks nice, looks organized, and looks very efficient. Not flashy, not splashy, none of those kind of superlatives is what you need. There are two basic entities that are going to look at your resume first. The first, most of the cases now, is going to be AI. AI is usually used by organizations for hiring, for scholarships, for some kind of pre-screening where they've uploaded keywords and content that they want AI to screen for. And AI does not care about your picture. AI does not care about fancy graphics or icons. AI cares about the content. So you want that content to be forward and for as much time to be given to content as possible. The other entity or the other person that's going to look at your resume first most of the time is going to be somebody that looks at a lot of resumes. They've seen it all. They've done it all. They're not impressed by your flashy template or your bright colors. They really just want to do their job and do the pre-screen to make sure that you're a candidate worth moving on to the next round. So unless you're an art student or somebody going into graphic design, perhaps marketing, those are the only students that I really recommend a little flash, a little dash of the color in there. Because if you're part of what you're applying for is your artistic skills and your artistic skill set, you want that to be reflected. But if you're just applying for a job at a Starbucks or a Chick-fil-A or the YMCA, you want to get the information on there. That's really what I would encourage you to focus on. So once you pick your template, I'm just going to walk you through the guide that I sent out to everybody. You all have a PDF version of this. Please spend lots of time looking at it. If you have any questions about it, this is the kickoff to working on these. This is not the be all end all. This isn't a one-time only thing. So please make sure that you follow this as carefully as possible, and then that'll give us a great jumping off point for the process. So the first thing to do, I like to just get out a piece of paper, write down everything that you've done since the start of middle school. That might seem excessive, but one of the things that colleges really look at is how long you've been doing something, not just the volume or the amount of things that you've done. So I would much rather be working with a student that's done band for 4, 5, 6 years than somebody that tried 4 or 5 or 6 different clubs in freshman and sophomore year. So think back through 8th grade, 7th grade, maybe back to 6th grade, thinking about those kind of things that you've shown growth and evolution through. That can be really helpful. And it also could be helpful to run that brainstorm list by your folks. Because a lot of the times students don't remember those things as well as parents do. They take an awful lot of pride in how awesome you all are. So they hold on to a lot of those facts and pieces of information in ways that could be really helpful to you writing this resume. So don't be shy about asking your folks to remind your reset your memory on some of this. It can lead to a lot of good content that you might not have thought about. We already talked about choosing a clean layout. You want to make sure that whatever you pick is laid out in a very easy to read way. Don't make it complicated. Then at the top, you want to add your contact information. My real instinct at this point is to just name, phone number, email address. That's it. Name, phone number, email address. We will want to add your home address when applying for local scholarships or perhaps when you're looking for a part-time job in a community. But generally in your base resume, don't put your address on there. It's no one's business. They don't need to know that about you. Then get into your writing the education section. You really want to, make it as simple and straightforward as possible. Don't list every class that you've had. Don't list, even every AP class that you've had, unless what you're applying for directly asks you to do that. We want to be lean and mean with the education section. At this point in high school, there's probably not a lot that is standing out for you from the crowd, unless you're taking some classes at a college, dual enrollment or kind of as a supplemental, then we might want to add that. When it comes to your GPA, add your GPA if it makes your story stronger. If it becomes something where your GPA isn't that high and you're worried that it might be something you have to explain, just leave it off there. They'll ask if it's really important to them. Next, extracurriculars need to fit in there. When you're putting your extracurriculars, the most important thing to highlight, if you can, is what you've actually done in the extracurricular. Not just that you're there, not just that you attend meetings. We want your impact to shine. Like the ideal extracurricular activity is that you volunteered for the same organization for 2 years and you've helped 500 families with 10,000 pounds of food and increased nutritional outputs by 37%. So the real key that you hear there is numbers. You want to make sure that that impact is something that people can read and a way that lets them hear or see what your impact has been. You don't want to get into just those clubs that you've gone to and attended meetings and just kind of sat there and goofed with your friends for a year or so. Really focus in on the things where you've had the impact, where your passion shows up, where you've been able to demonstrate leadership. Impact and leadership, that's what it's all about. That's what we really like. Then if you have work or volunteer experience, we want to list that. Again, be as specific as possible. You want to reflect that you've been doing things for a while. It's much more impressive, to attend a job and be employed or volunteer at the same place over years instead of like bouncing around and showing, oh, I worked here for a month. I did that for a month. I volunteered here for a couple of weeks. The more consistent, the better the message that sends to who you're applying to. Now, this is the part that people don't like hearing, but you're going to hear it a lot from me. So buckle up. When we write your basic resume, that's a fantastic starting point, and that will put you ahead of a lot of people. But what will really take you over the edge, especially with these scholarships that Dave mentioned, is that we adjust your resume for each thing that you apply for. We can do that without a ton of extra work. It's not like we're rewriting the whole resume, but we want to think strategically about it. If you're applying for an internship with a local government agency and you've done volunteering in the government of your town, we put that right to the top. If it's a scholarship that you're applying for, let's take Dave's example of the VFW. Great. If you have done any work with veterans, or anybody that is currently serving in the military, the VFW stands for Veterans of Foreign Wars. So that's an organization where anything that you've done with veterans or those in the military goes right to the top. So really what we're doing isn't writing a whole new resume. We're moving stuff up and down based on the priorities of what we're applying for. We might change a little of the wording around, but really, when you're out there applying for jobs in a handful of years, you want to make sure that one of the ways that your resume stands out is that it's really specifically written to the job or whatever opportunity that you're applying for. I'll show everybody a couple of tricks with that down the road. But for right now, we're just going to worry about this idea that your resume is a foundational document that will be adjusted over time. And it's not because you did anything wrong or I'm trying to create more work. It's just we want to bump up your chances as much as possible. So then you want to add awards and honors, Honor Society Student of the Month, Volunteer of the Month, placement in art competition. You won an award on band, your first chair. You've won individual awards at MPAs or, whatever it is, anything that makes you stand out from the crowd. You basically just want to start a list of it. And again, this is where your parents can help because trust me, they remember every single thing that you've won. It's a nice little feather in their cap. They're going to be able to help you out with this quite a bit if I had to guess. Then the next thing, the last thing, the most important thing is send it to me. I love looking at these things. It's really helpful to have a set of fresh eyes to look at things because remember, just because you put it in Canva or you wrote it in a Word doc that does the basic spell check or grammar check, that doesn't mean they catch it all. There's ways to misspell cognates where the word sounds the same, but you really have a different meaning. So you want to have somebody look it over, and I'm your guy. Very happy to help with that. And one of the last thing I'll recommend before I stop talking, and then you'll actually get some work done, your resume is a living document. Everything that you do, everything that you accomplish, add it when it happens. Don't say, oh, I'll get it some other day. I'll remember to put it in there later. Just do it. Pull it up. Add it. Even if it doesn't look perfect, the next time that we get ready to send out your resume, we can adjust everything, make sure it looks great again. So you want to make sure that you're going to keep adding to it. So I'm going to stop there. That is a pretty good, I do have this checklist for you. Definitely, keep this out when you're working on this. I have a couple of links up here if you didn't already have that. One last thing. Sorry, my bad. Competencies. Don't put skills on your resume. That is so 2010. What people are looking for now are competencies, because competencies, they're more advanced than skills. Skills are things that you know how to do. Competencies are things that you know how to do as part of a team or as part of an effort, and they really speak to your ability to work well with others. So there's not a lot of difference in there, but using competencies as your base language just speaks to professionalism and will be part of the equation of standing out from the crowd when it comes to your resume. So now I'm really going to stop and see if there are any questions that you all have. Feel free to drop any questions in the chat or come off mute and ask them. If not, I'm going to pause dramatically. I'm going to stop the recording, and then I'm just going to sit here for the next 20 minutes and be available to answer any questions that pop up while you all are working. So stopping recording.